and have tried to make over the years in STEM. I I feel very passionately about STEM. It's something that I never really thought I would be involved in as a kid. Uh, like I was always kind of into technology and computers, but I never thought that I would become an engineer one day. And one day, my mom, she had a brochure in the mail from this like this technical academy, and he basically just she showed me the brochure and she said, "Hey, like this school looks pretty interesting. How about you go and check it out?" And the school at the time, it wasn't your typical or average high school. Just normal high schools, you have like 900, kids, 1,000 kids. You have all the sports, and you have like a different groups of kids and different groups of people. My school was, I mean, less than 200 kids at the school. We had like 100 and like maybe 65 or 160 kids at the time, and it was only grades 9 through 12 at the time. And so when I went, it was different because I had this idea of like what high school would have been or what I thought it should be, and my high school wasn't necessarily matching up with the idea I had in my head. So when I get there, I do this interview. They ask me just questions about just myself, my personality, how I grew up, etc. And basically from there, I just had to wait and kind of see if they were interested in me, and they were. And so I went to this school called Toledo Technology Academy, and that's the reason why today I am an engineer and I am involved in STEM. And I don't really know or think or could guess really if I would be in STEM or into engineering if I hadn't gone to that high school. I'm not saying that I wouldn't have never become something in life or would have accomplished anything, but I don't really know if I would be where I'm at today if I didn't make the choice to go to that school. And not only that, but the school, they taught us, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering concepts, pneumatics, hydraulics. I mean, we were doing AutoCAD, like AutoCAD electrical and different AutoCAD programs as freshmen in high school. This is in 2008. So I've been involved in STEM for over a decade now. And it's kind of crazy to kind of say that because I'm still so young. I'm 26. But to say that, more than 10 or 11 or 12 years of my life have been just in STEM and promoting STEM and advertising for STEM and advocating for STEM is really crazy and really, awesome to think about at times. And so as I was going through my high school journey, I was still trying to just find myself and learn more about myself, and I wasn't entirely sure yet what I wanted to be. When I was growing up or getting older, 'cause normally when you're a kid, teachers ask you, what do you want to be? And some people might say a policeman or a fireman or architect, or any of those things. My high school, we didn't have sports either. I mean, we had a first robotics team, and we had an alternative energy team. Like we had a bowling team too, but we didn't have necessarily, we didn't have basketball, football, like the major, or normal high school would have. So it was basically just a bunch of, quote unquote nerdy kids together taking classes, learning about engineering and STEM. And honestly, I didn't get to the point where I wanted to become an engineer until my junior year of high school. And that's only because I took a class called digital electronics, and it's one of your like basic fundamental engineering courses, well, in my discipline, where you learn about like a proto board, or they might call it a breadboard. You have like your electrical chips, and you put them on the board and you put some wires together, and you kind of get like your LED outputs or your inputs and outputs, whatever you want to call it. And I took that class, and I kind of fell in love with it, like with the concepts behind it, with the class and how it went. The teacher was great, and my teacher at the time for that class, he had an electrical engineering degree too from the University of Cincinnati. And I saw it, and I was like, you know what? Maybe that's something that I could achieve one day, or maybe I could do something close to him, or maybe I could achieve a goal like that. And lo and behold, I kind of told him, I said, hey, I'm kind of interested in this engineering thing. Was it hard? He's like, yeah, but I made it through. I think that you can do it. I think you have the abilities to accomplish it. And so pretty much my senior year, I said, hey, let me just try out this engineering thing, and it worked. It took me 5 years, but and it was not easy at all. It was very very difficult. As we all know, being involved in STEM, science, math, I mean, chemistry, whatever you're into, right? They all have their challenges, as far as like the certain disciplines and certain majors. And for me, I didn't grow up with people that were involved in STEM, or people that I was a first gen college student, so I was the first person in my family to even go to college. So there was a lot riding on me, like a lot of, I wouldn't really call it like pressure per se, but I would just call it just, there was a lot on me to try to achieve, I guess, and try to make something of myself, because I didn't come from an environment that that did that, or that had that. So I was kind of
So,
the first to kind of start that trajectory, like for myself and for my family. So,
Tyrone,
um,
could I ask you a
yeah,
question?
yeah.
What made you kind of hang in there and succeed? Because this is,
Yeah, yeah.
because you did, right. So, and you're right. There's always challenges, and there's always times when you think, oh, this isn't going to work, and
Hmm.
but you managed to get over those. So what
Hmm.
was it? What do you think it was?
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, I would say it was just knowing that, number one, no one has done what I was trying to do before, like at least in my family. Like it was just knowing that, like, okay, I'm the first to kind of do this thing. And number two, what kept me going was just knowing, like, at the finish line, like at the finish line, like when I graduate, you know, what what would I be able to accomplish? What opportunities are out there? How could I, create something special for my name and my last name and my family and my legacy and my future family, my future kids, etc.
Mhm.
So I had all these different things going in through my head, like, hey Tyrone, like you have to, keep going. And it was hard. Like, I don't mean just hard just from just taking classes and doing homework and exams and labs. I mean, it was tough just because I had different personal things going on too, like just from different
Mhm.
directions, whether it was financially, or, I'm having trouble trying to pay my tuition, or I don't know how I'm gonna figure out how to get this scholarship or that scholarship. There was a lot of things I had to battle on top of going to class. And so, it was a lot coming to me from all different directions. But I think, honestly, what motivated me was just knowing, like, hey, like, you're the first person to do this in your family. You didn't grow up around STEM. You didn't see STEM growing up. I didn't grow up in the best environment, honestly. So, doing STEM or just being an engineer, like for somebody like me, was so like far fetched, like a totally different, spectrum. Because even now I get these reactions like, wait, you're how old? Like, you're 20, you're 25, 26. Where do you live at? Where do you work? And people are always just blown away, like whether I catch an Uber or a Lyft, or if somebody sees me, because I'm like 6'4", 6'5", so I'm tall. So I get attention sometimes from people because they think I play basketball or think I'm going to the NBA. I'm like, nah, nah, nah. And they're like, oh, well, like, what do you do? And I'm like, well, I'm an engineer. Oh, really? Like, where do you work? Or what company are you working for? Then I kind of get into like little conversations, and people are always just shocked because they're like, wow, like you're that young, you're already doing what you're doing. I'm like, yeah, like, but I don't want people to think that it's just something that's just easy. I mean, we all know that STEM is very difficult. STEM has a lot of very difficult challenges and different things that we have to kind of learn to figure out. But that's what makes STEM so beautiful, is because there's already been so many advancements of our fields before us, and all we're doing is trying to create our own advancements and create more on top of what's already been done. So then we just keep on continuing the legacy of STEM and continuing the legacy of science and math and technology, and we're always trying to discover new things and discover different ways to do things. I mean, that's what makes STEM and science so beautiful. So
That's a great answer because let me say
yeah,
what I think it was before you came on, but we were talking about this kind of problem of balance
yeah,
in science education. On the one
right,
hand, we got to be tough, we got to have high standards.
yeah,
It can't be anybody can do it.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
serious. On the
yeah,
other hand, we don't want to put people off, right?
exactly.
We want to support them. We want to make help them fulfill whatever
Yeah.
they want to achieve. And so,
Mhm.
how do you do that? I mean, how do you on the one hand be tough, but on the other hand be supportive?
Well, I mean, that's another great question. Again, a lot of it is just kind of feeding yourself positive mental reinforcement, all the time. Like, you're gonna have hard times, you're gonna have challenges. I mean, you're gonna I mean, at least for me personally, like I, there were people in my classes that were getting like straight A's and B's, and I'm getting C's and low C's and D's, and I'm like, man, like how are these guys? Like we're all in the same class. Like what's going on? So, I think for me, I had challenges where I felt kind of out of place at times. I mean, if I can be quite frank with you, I mean, in the majority of my engineering courses, I was the only Black or African American person in the class.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like, wow, man, like I'm really like I literally like I stand out like a sore thumb because I'm the only person that looks like me in these classes, and so I had to find different people to kind of network with, and I attribute an organization called NESB to my success, a lot in STEM. It's called the National Society of Black Engineers, and if I can share a little bit on it, it was created by 6 engineering students at Purdue University actually, 6 Black students. They were all having trouble, trying to navigate through the engineering curriculum, and they just said, hey, like let's just create our own study groups, and those study groups turned into an actual like organization. And so now what NESB does, the mission of it is to just inspire the next generation of engineers, inspire the next generation of talent. We want to have 10,000 Black engineers graduating by 2025. And now mind you, I mean, the name itself is National Society of Black Engineers, but that does not mean that our organization only takes in people that are Black. So we have people in it that are Hispanic, we have people in it that are, white, Caucasian. We have people from all different groups of demographics of people that are in this organization that succeed, you know. So people always get it twisted. They're like, oh, well, they only take Black people or they only care about, no, 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 no. That's how it started. But at least now, I mean, the organization is what it was 1975, so that's over 40 something years now that we've been trying to attack this mission of trying to get more kids involved in STEM. And at least for me, that's why I kind of joined to do this session today, because I want you guys to know that it's important that the kids nowadays, I mean, the kids nowadays are way smarter than the kids that we were. Like the kids now,
Yeah.
they just know way too much. um, and so it's important that we help the kids now kind of pass down our knowledge to them, so then they can become more successful than what we are today. And so that's why I'm so passionate about STEM and just advocating for STEM, because the kids are the future and they're the ones who's going to change the world. And we're trying to change the world, but they're the ones who's going to take what we do and make it better, hopefully. So that's why I'm so passionate about what I do with STEM, because I know it's important. I know that you have to get the proper exposure. For me, like again, if I never saw that, if my mom, like for example, if the mailman that day forgot to drop in that brochure, or if my
Yeah.
mom just didn't see the brochure, like honestly, that's a question. Like, where would I be right now?
Mm.
Because it was merely just her showing me the letter and saying, hey, like this high school is around the corner on such and such street. You know, hey son, you might want to check it out. But what if she never saw the brochure? Like, what would have happened, right? So it's one of those questions where you kind of think, like, man, like where would you be if certain things didn't happen in your life, or if a decision went this way instead of that way? Like, where would you end up? And just based off of her just kind of telling me about that, now I'm working at Northern Grumman Corporation as an engineer. I'm trying to do really well for myself. I'm trying to, do things as far as like my education, STEM advocacy, masters, different things like that. I'm trying to share with kids on STEM and why it's important and why we need more kids involved in it, because a lot of kids like me, especially like me, they grow up thinking that they can only be a rapper or an athlete or entertainer. And it's like, no, like you can be involved in STEM. Oh, what's STEM?
Yeah.
Science, technology, engineering, mathematics. Like, oh wow, like what is that? And then you start telling these kids about STEM and you see their eyes lighten up because they have no idea that this stuff is possible. I was the same kid. I had no idea what STEM was, or engineering or science and chemistry, and I had no idea what any of this stuff was.
So it's
Because
got to be. It starts with exposure, right?
yeah,
There's got to be
exposure,
exposure.
yes. Exposure is key. If you can get exposed to it, I mean the possibilities are endless. I mean, I was one of those kids, right? So again, right, if I never got exposed to that brochure that my mom had, it's like, well, would I ever have found out about STEM, or would I would I have ever become an engineer, or would that stuff would have happened? I mean, it's a question to think about, honestly. But you have to keep yourself motivated, and you have to know that other people are looking at you to achieve. And that's kind of hard too, because that kind of carried me through my college journey, was knowing that, hey, like, you are the only Black kid in the class. I
That
mean, or
yeah. That's
you
pressure.
are,
That's serious
yeah,
pressure. Yeah,
yeah, you are going
yes.
through these different challenges, right? But there are people that are looking up to you. There are people that are looking to you to achieve and
Yeah.
to graduate and to get you a nice job and a career. There are people that are looking to you to do these things to let them know that it's possible for them to do it as well. So that's really been my goal with this whole STEM thing in engineering, is just knowing that, like, I mean, yeah, like my own personal successes is awesome, but if I can, inspire the next generation, or if I can take a few kids and be like, hey, like, you guys can do this too, and then they do it one day, or if I grow older and I see them, they're doing it, and hey, like, that was my mentor from such and such years ago, and he told me I could do this, and now I'm doing this, and that's what it's about to me. So, if I can just share my own knowledge and my own kind of challenges and different things I've gone through, I can help the next generation, the future, to achieve more as well. So, that's what I'm so passionate about, just this topic of STEM and just advocating for it. It's important.
So what is it that? So let me ask you another question, because
Mm-hmm.
this is I think is a really important discussion that
Mm-hmm.
I have. So at USC I have a pretty big lab. I got a
Mm-hmm.
lot of students from
Yeah.
everywhere, honestly,
Yeah.
all around the world,
Yeah.
and every ethnicity, every
Yep.
religion, everything you could imagine,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, and I certainly don't treat anybody any differently. Anyone comes in
Of
my
course.
lab, there's a lab culture,
Open door policy.
so and but I have to say, and I'll use an example. I won't name her, but I have a colleague, and she's Latina,
Mm-hmm.
and she's very experienced. She's a faculty member, and she's excellent. But
Mm-hmm.
she's admitted to me, and I know her very well, so we can have these kind of conversations. That she isn't always very comfortable, and this is after many years
Mm-hmm.
being in that environment. And
Mm-hmm.
I honestly can't quite understand it, because
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing that in our relationship that would make her feel uncomfortable, and yet there's still something there that
Sure.
is not quite right,
Right.
and
Mm-hmm.
it's not something that overwhelms her, but it is there,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's a hard thing to talk about, but it
Of course.
probably needs to be talked about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Go
I mean,
ahead, Brian.
can I inject? So one thing that I think is it's important. I'm a high school teacher, so people like Tyrone are the reason why I wake up in the morning. Why the reason I don't sleep at night, because like
There
these
we
are the
go.
people that you work for, right? And
Yeah.
like honestly, like I got into a little. I didn't say everything about why I got into high school, but I actually played volleyball. I coached volleyball. I started coaching kids who were in that range, and I was like, this is who I want to work with. These are the people
Yeah.
that I enjoy and I want to inspire. So like we kind of work towards that. Now I think there's this interesting question with what you're saying. I think with science, and there's this, like, we were talking about the summer a little bit when we were in a training session. There's this sort of thing of like, not like why aren't as many minorities in science, like, because we learn about science history, right? It's all white Europeans, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so it's kind of like, why was everyone white? And so we have that
Yeah.
discussion, right? Which is more about, this is how the history kind of unfolded. This is the
Mm-hmm.
origins of where science came from. But now what we do every day is we have almost every day in class, especially in my prep class, my lowest level class, which is where I'm
Mm-hmm.
really trying to get people like Tyrone, who may not be the best student, to understand, like, right away, to understand, like, this is what science is like. It's not
Yep.
learning stuff from a book. It's like we're doing
Mm-hmm.
stuff. We're hands on. We're learning, like, this is what science. This is, we're doing science in class, right?
Exactly.
But what
Right.
we also do is we say, okay, now here's a scientist from a different culture, right? We talk
Mm-hmm.
about scientists from that are Hispanic, scientists that are Black, scientists that are Arabic, and because it's
Mm-hmm.
relates to the student population we have in the classroom. And
Mm-hmm.
so every day we talk about that, almost
Yeah.
every week
Yeah.
at least we talk about that, and that's so important, I think, because they see themselves in other people, and they say, like, I have this chance to be like this person. I can do these things.
Yeah.
And if they get exposed to that, they believe that. And I've had students that are not great students are like, I really like chemistry, or I really understand chemistry, or I can, and they can explain concepts, right? That I didn't think they could do.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe the math isn't there yet, but they understand the science. And so
Yeah.
I think it's like inspiring them to see themselves in other people and
Mhm.
showing those examples as much as possible does really
Yeah,
help prevent
yeah,
people from feeling like imposters or that they can't do something that they can definitely do.
yeah. I mean, I agree. Like exposure is so key. I mean, and again, right? Like the exposure is why I'm here today with you guys. I mean, if I didn't get that exposure, I don't really know where I would be, honestly. And like again, to your point, I wasn't a student that just came in doing Calc 2 and general chem. Like, no, I started way at the bottom. Like I came in, I was doing, math 1200 and pre-algebra and working my way up to algebra, trig. I started way at the bottom, but now, I mean, math is my favorite subject, and I fell in love with math and calculus and stuff like that. I mean, I did pretty good with chemistry as well. I had elementary chemistry, general chemistry. I didn't have to go too far into the chemistries because I was doing electrical engineering, but even with those, like I learned a lot too. So, the electron transfers and all that type of stuff like that. So I remember some of those concepts, how you have to like balance your equations and all that. So I started it, man, at the bottom, honestly, and I had to kind of work my way up to where I'm at now. So again, like I was one of those kids that came in like, man, like I don't like, am I good enough? Am I smart enough for this? And I don't know. But then I kind of, as I kept working with it, I kind of, became more comfortable with it, and just I kind of told myself like, hey, like if these people can do it, or if they can do it, you can do it too. And like you're here for a reason as well. So to your point, about the exposure and just showing these kids like, hey, like these people look just like you, or they're just like you, and you can be like them, and you can achieve like them. It's important. I mean, and that's all of these things that we're discussing right now is what's going to help advance STEM. And STEM is already incredibly an incredibly advanced field in its own right. But as we keep doing things like this, as we're doing now, I mean, STEM will advance further. Like as we're all like far gone, STEM will just keep advancing and advancing and advancing and advancing. And we're gonna have, technology is booming right now. Technology is just going crazy. Like I never thought I would see a day where you can unlock your phone like with just your face and the AI. Like it's crazy, like stuff like that, and the kids of the future are going to be doing stuff like that to help advance the culture of STEM. So, I definitely agree with your point.
Yeah. Do
Yeah.
you maybe change the conversation slightly? But what do you find in the industry? Do you find similar barriers, or
Hmm.
do you feel more comfortable there?
Um.
Have you
Yeah,
kind of
man, you
got
have some
over
really good
those
questions.
barriers now?
Yeah, you have some great questions.
Sorry, I'm asking you tough questions.
No, yeah, no, no. These are very thought provoking questions, honestly. I think now that I've been in the industry for a few years, I mean, there's still some of those barriers, that like even on my team now, like I'm the only black person on my team, like at work. So again, right, that's a similar barrier as to what I had in college. So but my team, they do support me, and I do have that mentorship there. But yeah, I mean, there's similarities between how I was in college as far as different barriers and challenges as to what it is in the industry. But in the industry, I mean, I'm a bit more comfortable now because I'm used
Yeah,
to it now, right?
yeah,
You know, beforehand I was a freshman or sophomore in college trying to understand all of this stuff. But now, I'm almost 3 years removed from graduating college and being in the industry. And now it's kind of like, well, hey, I mean, even if you are the only black person on the team, what can you do to get more people on the team, or what can you do to get more people in your field? And so now I've been trying to hire people and trying to get people hired on into the company, so like they can also do what they want to do, or they can join my team. That's fine too, right? But I think I try to adapt the lift as we climb kind of mindset. Like, as I kind of go and learn and figure out, I try to reach back and say, hey, don't do this, or don't do this the way I did, or I try to give
mm,
people an easier method to try to get through different challenges and situations. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely been some parallels between my college days and me being in the industry, but I think right now I just become so just accustomed to it and kind of,
yeah.
just kind of, but I'm still motivated though. I'm still motivated to do things like this and still to advocate for STEM and to still, help out little kids that look like me and say, hey man, like, you can do it too. Or hey young lady, you can do it as well. Like it's not just me. I'm not the only person that can achieve and work at Northrop and do what I'm doing. There's a lot of people out there who have bright minds that can do similar things like this.
So that people just need. Do you think it's really just a matter then of that kind of sentiment has just got to be reinforced all the time?
Yeah,
Uh,
it's just it's reinforcement. It's
yeah,
positive reinforcement and encouragement, and because a lot of kids, especially like that look like me or come from backgrounds like I have, like they only think, okay, I can only be a rapper, entertainer, or I can be an athlete.
yeah,
Right? And I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with that. If the kid grows up and
right.
or the kid's getting older, like, hey, I want to be in the NBA. Okay, fine, go ahead, be in the NBA. That's cool. Like, no sweat, right? But I want kids to also know, like, hey, you can also be a scientist. You can also be a researcher. You can also be a PhD in chemistry.
Yeah,
You can also publish your own work, your own articles. You can sit in a lab for months and months and discover something new, or you can sit in the lab and attack a project that maybe somebody else wasn't successful at, and then you get successful at it, right? You can do these things. You can work at Northrop Grumman, you can work at Boeing, you can work at Lockheed Martin, you can work at these premier aerospace companies. You can work at Google, you can work at Facebook. Like, I want the kids to know just how endless the possibilities are. I don't want their minds to just be limited and narrow, like, okay, rapper or athlete. Like, I don't want them
hmm,
to just think that way. Now, it's cool if you want to be in entertainment. It's cool if you want to be an athlete. I won't take that away from them, but I want them to know, like, hey, if you don't want to do that, STEM is here too.
there's some options. There's other ways,
Here's some
other
other
things. Yeah,
options. Here are some other ways to achieve what you're trying to achieve if you don't want to go those routes. So I don't want to like throw it down their throats per se, but just let them know, like, hey, this is STEM. This is what STEM has done for me and people around me and people that I know. And even this, me being on the call with you guys, sharing just different things about STEM. Like, again, right? Like, if I never saw that brochure that my mom had, I probably wouldn't be sitting here right now talking to you guys, honestly. So, you know, um, it's been great. Honestly, STEM has just done just unparalleled things for my life. Like,
yeah,
I've been, able to speak with different people. I've been able to meet a lot of different people. I've traveled a lot of different places. I've been a part of a lot of different, organizations. I've been able to just achieve certain different things in my life. Like, and I credit a lot of that to STEM, honestly, and just trying to advocate for STEM. I mean, STEM is very, very important to me. And there's nothing better than just, as Ryan was saying, inspiring those kids, or those kids that think that they can't do it, or those kids that kind of, man, can I be like him, or can I grow up and do what he's doing? Yeah, you absolutely can. But as you were saying, right, you have to just positively reinforce those that mindset into them, and you have to start early. Like,
yeah,
if you get on the kids early when they're young, oh man, because I got to STEM when I was a junior in high school. So I was
yeah,
what, 17, 18 years old, right? Prior to that, I had no idea about STEM or engineering.
Yeah.
So, if you get to the young ones early, as they're young, and you start doing projects with them, or you start maybe having them shadow you in the lab, or you take them to work and kind of show them stuff. Like, the kids now are just they're just so smart and advanced, and they have a lot of resources that we necessarily didn't have and that you didn't have growing up. Like, kids got stuff now like that I didn't have growing up. So I'm growing up in the dial-up age of the internet, stuff like that, net zero and AOL and whatnot,
yeah. Some of us
stuff like
grew
that.
up in the pre-internet age.
Yeah, and some of us have grown up in the pre-internet age, right? So the kids now, they have a whole world of resources available to them to learn and to achieve. They have different websites they can learn from. They have different technology they can use to advance their minds and advance the culture of STEM. And that's what's important. So as we keep doing what we're doing, things like this, and working with kids and doing our research, and being teachers and mentoring, the next generation. I mean, the possibilities are endless. And as we are able to continue doing that, I mean, STEM will just blow up into its own other thing. I mean, honestly, it's very important.
Yeah, and I think the big thing there is just having really passionate, good teachers,
Yeah,
right?
you got to
In
you
in
have to have good
science,
teachers.
and it's hard to find them. It's hard to with the current, like, just amount of money that teachers make, right? I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
it's hard to attract people into those
yeah.
jobs sometimes. And like, I teach at a private school, so
Mm,
it's a good private school, and so we get paid pretty well, and it's okay. But like, the schools that you may not have, if you hadn't got that brochure, that you may have had to go to, may not have had that same opportunity, but they should have the same
exactly.
people. Like, they
They
should
should.
have the
Yeah.
same people there. They should have people who are
Hmm.
going to show you what science is early on. And Like, and I feel like that's, this is a whole other discussion about how we do science education, but really I believe that what's changed my whole, I guess, approach has just been understanding how important it is to start just doing science. It's not about talking about science. It's not about showing a demo or something. It's like, no, we're actually going to like learn about the law of conservation of mass today by doing that and collecting data and setting up an experiment and designing a hypothesis that may be challenged and then describing like what's happening at the particle level. Like, so they see that this is a scientific process and this is what science is. And it's not just doing a bunch of equations. It's not just memorizing a bunch of facts that someone did before you. This is what experimentation is. And this is what you're going to do if you go into science. And that's where you get those kids maybe who are like, well, I'm not good at math, so I'm not going to do science right away. And you say, well, you know, we don't need to be that great at math to design good experiments. And you can figure that out later if you get really excited about it. And so I guess what I'd say is it's as a teacher going into science, you know, you don't have to know everything about the subject right away that you're teaching. You know, if you're passionate about educating kids and you want to make sure that they have a great opportunity in their path, like you can do that. Like you can go through those steps and do that and be that person for those kids. And that's a really rewarding experience. I mean, I've loved having students come back. I mean, I don't know if you come back to see your teachers, but you should, because I love seeing their kids grow and the success that they've had. And it's a great thing for them to keep them going. So connect with your teachers, come back and say thank you, whatever, because we love seeing where our kids go and what the success they have, because it's just things that really inspire you to keep doing it.
Yeah, like to your point, I actually do. Like whenever I get a chance to go back home, because I live in California now, but I'm from Ohio. So whenever I go back home, I always make a chance to go back to my high school. And they're like, Tyrone, like, wow, and, you know, you're just, and they just get so excited about it. And I'm like, wow, man, this is so cool, because it makes them think like, you know, I was your teacher when you were, you know, 14 and 15 years old. Now you're doing, and now you live here and now you're working. So they, you know, to your point, they get so excited about it. Like, I mean, they're all like little kids in a candy store. Like, it's funny, but it's cool, man. It's very humbling to like go back to your roots and to your high school and like walk around and like, yeah, you know, like when you were 14, you were doing this, and now you're 26 and you're here, and like, Tyrone, like, wow, like they get so excited about it, and it's very cool. Like it's very cool to and fun to just see like all of my teachers' reactions to like what I'm doing now. So it's awesome. So yeah, I would definitely encourage kids to go back and you know, as you get older, go back to your roots into your high school and, you know, middle school and stuff like that. And like, hey, like, you know, like what you did, like it paid off. Like, you know, like because teachers, they're definitely, in my opinion, they're very underappreciated today. And I don't think people really realize the impact that teachers really have, like on kids, and the impacts that they can have on kids, whether it's positive or negative. We want it to be positive, right? But teachers have a huge impact on the future, on the generation, honestly, because I mean, even to a lot of degree, you know, sometimes teachers are parents and other things and counselors and stuff, because a lot of these kids, they don't have, you know, great backgrounds, honestly. So, you know, there are times where a teacher may have to be a counselor or a therapist, or they may have to help a kid out financially, or, you know, things like that. So, I mean, teachers are definitely very underappreciated, you know, and I wish that they were appreciated more than what they are, honestly. Then,
Yeah. Excuse me. I mean, because you mentioned about the time, the year that you got interest inspired into STEM. But could you say a little bit more of what exactly inspired you as a teacher, your sibling parents, or some kind of project or magazine or something like that at that time?
was that for me or?
For you, yeah, because you mentioned
Oh,
like you were inspired and you started to be interested in STEM at a certain
yeah,
age. But
yeah,
could you say a few words what actually is teacher or some
yeah.
course
So,
or TV show or sci-fi or your siblings or friends or those things?
yeah. Honestly, so when I talked about my digital electronics course, that my junior year, it was my teacher. My teacher at that time, he had a electrical engineering degree from the University of Cincinnati, and he always had his degree certificate like in this like frame he had on his desk, and I would just look at it because like when you walk in his door, you would see like his desk like right in front of you, and I would see all of his little, you know, awards and certificates and stuff. And so I was just so deeply inspired. I'm like, man, what if I could achieve that? What if I could do that? And really, I mean, it was really my teacher at high school in my junior year. He really kind of sparked the light plug in my brain to be like, you know what, like maybe this is something that you actually can do. Like maybe you can actually achieve this. And so even to this day, like I saw him, last October, and he was just like, wow, like, you know, I was telling him about what I'm doing. He was like, yeah, I already know. And I was like, what do you mean you already know? Because like they're so, like, the teachers, they get so deeply invested in their students, and they follow you even when you think they're not, or they watch you even when you think they're not watching you. And so, I was telling him, he's like, yeah, I already know. He was just so excited, and you know, he really, like, definitely, I do credit him a lot with, like, just exposure and me telling myself that I could become an engineer. Like, I don't really know if I would have maybe as fast or as early if it weren't for him. And no matter where I go in life, no matter what I achieve, what's behind my name or in the back of my name, whatever, I'm always gonna remember, like, just certain roots and just kind of like where I started at and where I came from, because I think that's important as you kind of grow in your journey. You always want to take time to kind of reflect and, like, man, like, it's great to enjoy your success now and where you are now, but, like, never forget kind of like what you had to kind of endure and go through to get there, and never forget those challenges and those hard times, and those times where you wanted to quit, because there were times when I was going through undergrad where I was like, I don't know if I will make it out of this class. Like, to be honest, I failed a class almost 3 times before graduation. I failed the first time, and I was like, yeah, I don't know. And so I kind of brushed it off. I said, okay, that's just once. I took the same class a whole year later and failed it again. And so at that point, I was like, yeah, I don't know if this engineering thing's gonna work out for me too much. So, you have moments like that, and you're just like, wow, like, am I built for this? Like, am I supposed to be in STEM? Am I supposed to be an engineer? And I had these questions, I had these thoughts. Like, I'm not gonna, run from that or be ashamed of it. I had thoughts all the time of, like, am I smart enough? Am I supposed to be doing this? And, like, should I switch my major? Should I do this or not? And honestly, I stuck with it because I knew at the end of the day, I was not only doing what I was doing for myself, like, there were other people, like, looking to me to kind of do this. And it was kind of like my duty in a way, my responsibility in a way, to kind of keep going and keep inspiring and keep learning, because there are people, even in my family, like, I have a lot of little cousins and little, nephews and nieces and whatnot, and different people that are looking to me to kind of, achieve and do something. So I've always felt that it was important for me to keep going with my journey. And again, right, there are a lot of people who don't continue. They come in, and they drop out their freshman semester or their first semester of school or their second semester of school, especially kids that look like me. It's not common that a lot of us go through and matriculate through our programs. And so when we do, it's amazing, because it's like, wow, like, you went through a whole engineering program, and you had these certain kind of odds and certain things, stacked against you, and you were able to kind of make it out and make it through. And now, since you made it out, you're able to help the next person and the next people kind of get through and navigate those same challenges. And so it's important that we have teachers like Ryan. It's important that we have, you know, uh, Dr. Hayworth, doing what he's doing. It's important that we have all these people doing what we're doing, because that's the only way that we can advance STEM and advance the culture of STEM. And it's important because, I mean, honestly, without STEM, I mean, I wouldn't be here, honestly. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm not telling myself that I wouldn't be able to achieve anything else, but I wouldn't be here, like, without STEM. So I owe a lot of it to just the culture of STEM, and being passionate about STEM, being passionate about mentoring, being passionate about, little kids and helping them out and helping them achieve, and being passionate about, sharing my knowledge and being passionate about these different things. It's important. And I'm 26 years old, so hopefully I still have a whole lot of life left to live, and I plan to do this, until my last times, my last breath. So, it's always important to me.
How do you think we can keep more people, on track? Because this
Yeah.
is a problem, one thing that I listen to you, I really appreciate what you're saying, but I also would say, I feel exactly the same. STEM has done unbelievable things for me. I mean,
Absolutely.
I've traveled the world. I've met I mean, all places I couldn't have ever imagined I would have been to, and met people I would, and it's like you say, I'm doing it today. I'm doing it all the time. So it's a very similar experience, quite honestly. I mean, I come from the north of England. I come from a completely different society, culture, everything. But actually, I think what you're saying, and I did it. I'm in my late 50s. I did this 30 years ago. What you're doing, but it doesn't really sound very different, honestly.
Not at all.
There were. I mean, we had different challenges, but we had challenges. So our experiences are pretty similar, despite all the obvious differences.
Sure.
So how do you convince people that and it's harder maybe for me to talk to a minority population because perhaps they don't identify with me as strongly for obvious reasons, but actually they really should, because I'm talking about the same challenges, in many respects, and I don't. It's not easy to know. Would I do more damage, or would I be a positive reinforcement for them? I worry about that sometimes.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah. No, I understand. Honestly, I would just encourage you just to keep doing what you're doing now. I mean, honestly, like, there are the obvious differences out there, right? But it's not really about the person's, ethnicity or nationality and all of that. It's all about the knowledge and the wisdom that they're giving you. So if you're talking to kids, it shouldn't matter. It shouldn't really matter that you're from the north of England, right?
Right. I hope it doesn't.
Right. You know what I mean? Like, it should just matter. Like, okay, we have this person here. He's very, very knowledgeable. He's very, very skilled. He's very, very talented. He's been through some things in his life, and he's able to help us get to the next step in our lives. That's all that should matter. So these kids shouldn't look to you like, oh, well, he's from England, he's from overseas, he has an accent, blah blah blah. That shouldn't matter at all. Because even with me, I kind of think the same thing sometimes. Like when I speak, like, okay, I'm black, I'm tall, what are they gonna think? But I just keep going. I just keep sharing, because it's not really about the person on the outside, it's about what's on the inside. So as you kind of think like that, and like, well, you know what, I have a lot of knowledge in me, and you're able to share that knowledge with the next generation. I mean, that's all that matters. And then as you keep doing that, the kids will come to you, and then they'll later talk to you about England. They'll ask you questions and stuff, and that's great. But at the time being, those differences shouldn't matter. It's cool that you are from the north of England. I mean, I've never been overseas. I don't even have a passport. So, it's my dream. It's my dream to go overseas one day. But, and those are all cool facts and cool things to learn about you. But what matters is the knowledge that you're giving these kids and these students. And so as you keep doing what you're doing now, I mean, you're gonna continue to inspire more and more and more. So, and that's all that matters at the end of the day.
And I mean, I don't want to, I don't know if the right word is socially appropriate or whatever, but I mean, Ian, I don't know if you felt like being from the north of England, right, in that time, having a northern accent, if you were educated in the South, they would not have thought you were as smart if you had a posh accent, right? So being from Yorkshire or wherever it is you're from, I mean, this
Lancashire, actually.
Lancashire, okay. Then that accent sticks out in England. It's not the same.
I spent 3 years in Oxford, and there's a phrase in Oxford, the Northern Chemist,
right?
And it's meant to, it's a very derogatory term. It's meant to be someone who has no breeding, no class, no anything, but and it is a real phrase. It's used, and it certainly applied to me both literally, and also in the sense that my background is from I wouldn't say impoverished, but it's certainly not wealthy. And so for me to be at Oxford was something significant, and so I think I identify with that kind of not fitting in completely or having to learn how to fit in. It's a very different thing, but it's not completely different.
Yeah, I mean, and it's just different challenges, but we also have a lot of similarities. I mean, that's the whole point about networking and meeting people, is that, you're going to have obvious differences, right? But there are also things that we can come to together as people and learn and be like, oh, you know what? Like, I share the same thing, or I think the same way. And that's why networking is so important, especially in STEM. I mean, I know so many people just through my STEM journey of just meeting people and being a part of, NSBE, and being part of AAIA, Los Angeles, Las Vegas chapter, all these different things I'm doing, like I've met so many cool and amazing people. Like it's ridiculous, like how many people I just know of or that I've met that are doing just unparalleled things, like in today's world, in today's society. So I mean, honestly, like I'm always gonna continue to do stuff like this. Like I will do this until I drop dead. Like I'm always gonna be passionate about STEM. I'm always gonna be passionate about science and tech and engineering and mathematics, and I'm always gonna be passionate about helping little kids get to where I am today, and even further than me. You know, I want them to not just get to where I am, but you know, surpass me. You know,
Absolutely.
exceed me. You know, do more than what I'm doing. Like I ain't doing too much, but I want them to kind of know, like, hey, like you can do what I'm doing and more. And you know, so as we keep having people like yourself and people like Ryan who's really invested in the kids and trying to get them to, you know, get hands on, and that's why I love STEM, because it's hands on. Like you can get hands on with it and really like get your hands dirty and get into it. So that's what really inspired me to achieve, you know, STEM and engineering and beginning engineer is like it's hands on and you can see it all with your eyes. It's all tangible. So, you know, that's why I appreciate STEM so much.
Fantastic. Well,
Yeah.
Ken, I hope our discussion is really whoever's watching this is
Yeah.
enthused, because that's what we're trying to do, and I think it's very sincere and honest, and we're into this.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
yeah, very candid. Yeah, very
Yeah,
candid.
this is yeah really exciting, amazing. Actually, our next speaker, Daniela, is here, and she's also going to talk about the STEM. So later, you are welcome to continue to stay, and after her presentation, you'll can stay in the discussion. But before that, Taryn, I mean, we have got two great educators. One is the best teacher in the best high school, and is the best professor in USC. So,
Mm-hmm.
say for example, you have your teacher, STEM teacher in high school and in college. Do you have something to say to those your professor, not them, but just pretend they are your former teacher, STEM teacher or professor in college? Do you have something to talk to them? You know, of course, you got great teachers and professors, but you say like something you can say thank for them for what they did right, and if it's something you wish them could have do a little bit better, something like that, kind of suggestion or recommendation.
Yeah, yeah. So I think it's important as like professors and teachers that you really try to get that one-on-one time with the student. And I know a lot of times, like, you know, professors, they have office hours, but we I mean, let's be honest, a lot of the students, they don't go to office hours as they should, right? Or they only go when it's like, oh, you know, professor, I have an F, like I need to pass. That's when you start seeing them show up, but they don't go just normally throughout the semester. So that's how I passed the class that I failed twice, because the last time I took it, I made an effort to actually like get to know the professor and get to learn about him and his life and like what he's doing, and not just the content or the material of the class. And I think that's the only reason why I passed, is because it was still super, super hard. But I think he passed me because he saw like I was fighting to like learn about him and like himself and like what he's doing. And so I think it's important because I think professors and teachers, they want to build actual relationships with the students. You know, they want to learn about them outside of the class that they're teaching. But again, right, a lot of times students, they don't even go to office hours. They don't care about going to office hours. So I think you know, with my teacher, like we actually built a relationship. And that's why he inspired me so much to go after engineering and specifically electrical engineering, right? Because that was his background. So I think as students and teachers are able to kind of build those relationships and build those intimate conversations, those relationships and those one-on-ones, I mean, that's how you're able to kind of get the trust between the professor and the student. And then you will learn stuff about the professor, and then the professor will end up being able to help you out along the line. And you may be able to help the professor out too with something. So because these professors, they're all tied into really, really large and extensive networks. They know a lot of people that they can pull some strings if they need to. And so if you're able to kind of build those relationships with those professors, you know, a professor can write you a recommendation letter. You know, they can put in a good word for you for this organization, that organization. They can help you kind of get through things personally. So, I mean, it's all about building those relationships. And I think that I would just encourage everybody just to build those strong relationships with like your professor, your teacher, because you don't know what they can do, not only just for you, but you don't know what you can do for them as well. You know, it's a mutual, you know, positive thing. So, you know, intimate relationships is my my thing and the thing that I would hone in on the most with that question.
Yeah, Tyrone is a very good speaker and he's a very professional LinkedIn site. You can welcome to
Thank you.
look
Thank
into
you.
it. He's a very good professional speaker as well.
Thank you.
Inspirative.
Thank you. Thank you so
Eh,
much, Ken. I
yeah,
appreciate
yeah.
that.
But highly pleasure. And the thing, Tara, I know we started 10 minutes late. Do you want to say a few more words, to
Yeah.
conclude your, and later, when Daniela said, Daniela is going to, she is an expert in STEM education as well. And
Oh
Tyrone
yeah.
was talking about this STEM education inspiring the African American people, and Ryan was a high school teacher. Professor Howard is a USC professor. They will talk about the young professional, and they are all welcome to stay. So after Daniel's presentation, you're
Yeah.
welcome to continue the discussion on STEM education.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Taryn, do
Yeah.
you want to say a few more to conclude your talk?
Yeah, yeah, sure. Honestly, I mean, once again, thank everybody involved for having me here today. Like this, like I'm motivated right now to run to a wall if I could. Like this, because this is great conversation. This is what it's all about at the end of the day. And I want people to know, especially the kids and those teachers out there that may be watching. I want you guys to know that, we always have to push STEM forward. We always have to push the needle. We always have to advance the needle. We always have to, you know, do positive things surrounding STEM. And STEM is in a great place right now. And we can only do things together to make it even greater and make it even bigger now. And make it so our kids can do more and be more than what we are today. So I just encourage everybody just to keep advocating for STEM, pursuing your interest in STEM, helping the little kids out, helping those young kids out who may come from messed up situations that don't even think being involved in STEM is possible, being a teacher is possible, being a USC PhD or USC doctor is possible. Being a teacher is possible. They need to know that these things are available to them. They know it's not just about being a rapper or an athlete or an entertainer. Like you can do more than just those things. A lot of kids they think they go, oh no, I'm a rapper, I'm gonna be an entertainer, I'm gonna be like LeBron James. Nothing wrong with having those goals and those dreams, but I want the kids to know they can also do other things as well, right? So I mean, please, guys, keep doing what you all are doing in your own respective rights and in your own respective fields. I mean, I know that I will. I'm excited to meet you all. I've been excited to meet you all, today. So, I will definitely be in touch with all of you. I have your emails, and I'm sure we can exchange LinkedIn's and contacts and emails and stuff. And hopefully we can continue to just to create more and to do more things with them in the future down the line. So thank you guys once again for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Taryn is a great inspirational speaker. So
Thank you. Thank
stay
you.
in touch. Welcome back anytime.
Always.